The Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2020 CJ Cup early preview. Quick research, and the picks will be coming on Wednesday. The Pat Mayo Experience full DraftKings pick show for the CJ Cup will happen on Wednesday afternoon, so please tune into that. But in the meantime, smash the like button to the video, and in the comment section, please give me your early lean for who's going to win the CJ Cup this week. And if you want to really dig into the stats, everything is now loaded up on fantasynational.com. If you go to fantasynational.com/Mayo, you get yourself a 20% discount on all of the tools, all of the stats, which are highly customizable, the lineup generator, the simulator, everything that you want to know. And this is a really tough week in order to really dig into much, because the CJ Cup normally played at 9 bridges in that weird island off South Korea, Jeju Island, I believe it's called, where the 9th bridge is metaphorical, but obviously due to COVID situations that the PGA Tour is remaining stateside, except for that quick dalliance into the Dominican Republic. But this year it's going to be in Las Vegas, just like last week's tournament, and next week's Zozo Championship is moving to California, not to Japan. So we're going to be dealing with some first-time courses on the docket. This isn't really a first-time course because that Tiger versus Phil match happened here as well. So let's just jump right in to what's going on. Let's take a quick look at the scorecard this week. There's only 78 players in the field. It's a no-cut event and expected to start, I don't have the official tee times as of yet, but I would expect the first tee time to be like 11 a.m. Eastern or even later on Thursday. So you'll have plenty of time to get up on your research. Again, fantasynational.com for all of that. 7,527 yards as per the official scorecard. Par 72. It looks like number 11 might be a bit drivable, especially at elevation. So when you really look at this, I don't even really know what sort of skill set we're looking at. And we're back to the sort of event where is a really top-end field. We'll get to the field here in a second. We'll get to some of the odds. But it's kind of crazy, just the name power. Each of the top 5 players in the world are competing this week. So, and we'll see Tiger again next week at the Zozo in, I believe it's just outside of Los Angeles. I'm not even sure where it is. I haven't started my Zozo research yet. I'm really hammering down right now on what's going on at Shadow Creek in Las Vegas and trying to really wrap my mind around this. I'll have the full information, obviously, in the Wednesday show, but I just wanted to kind of get out ahead of this and just see which players are playing well right now and where we should be looking for and the type of players that we should be targeting for this event. So if we go back and take a look at the scorecard once again, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, only 5 par 4s less than 450 yards. You'll have a full complement of the par 5. So I'd imagine the eagle rate is going to be pretty high on this list. And we just go over and look at the course details as well. We'll see, you have your average green size of 5,500. It's just below average. So a bit of smaller side of the greens. And then if you look at the bunkers, 74, number of water hazards, 8, but it's in play on 9 of the holes. Bent grass greens, as per the GCSAA tournament fact sheet, is a Fazio design. Course owner is MGM Resorts International. And actually, weirdly, this year, I don't even really know how this works. I should probably talk to my contacts at DraftKings about this. I thought DraftKings was the official partner of the PGA Tour, but for whatever reason, the broadcast has teamed up, I believe, with MGM this week to provide live odds during this. We saw this at Shadow Creek last time during the Tiger versus Phil match, where they were updating it, and then the commentators really had no idea what was going on in terms of the odds. We saw this last week on PGA Tour Live as well, when someone says like, oh, to win this 3-ball, it's plus 240, and the commentator's like, well, that means you have to risk $10 to win 240. It's like, nah, that is not how that works. That is incorrect. So I always get a good chuckle when the commentators who know nothing about gambling are starting to talk about gambling lines. I'm happy that gambling is getting integrated into the broadcast. That's step one, just getting it there. And then we can figure out how to actually do the broadcast and properly integrate it at a later date. But just getting it in the door, just a foot in the door, is step one to all of this. So, I mean, if nothing else, it should provide some unintentional comedy when some people are trying to break all of this down. It's like, oh, here's this one putt from Brooks Koepka, and he lipped it out. That changed his odds from plus 1,600 to plus 1,800. That means if you had just wagered 2 seconds later, you could have won an extra $3 million, or I don't know what the hell they're going to say, but it's going to be something to that effect, and it'll be kind of humorous for people that if you're watching this show, you probably know how to bet on golf. But let's just jump into the field then. Like I said, it's going to be a tough week to really figure out, especially in these star-studded fields where you have all of these players. The DraftKings pricing is out already. We can sort by salary. It's all up on fantasynational.com right now if you want to check it out. Rahm, Dustin, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, Xander, and Matthew Wolff, all above $10,000. I can actually imagine Matthew Wolff not getting the sort of rub here at $10,000, despite the fact that he came second last week, came second at the U.S. Open, but just where he's now priced around Xander and Rory and above Cantlay and Brooks. Brooks is back, actually, for the first time since his injury. We'll see how he plays. It's kind of funny to me. I saw him at 25-1 very early on when the odds first opened. All the guys are severely depressed this week in such a strong field with a limited number of participants and no cut. That's going to be tough to figure out. But at the same time, Brooks at 25-1, it's kind of strange to think about, only because let's go back to Memphis, where he has played well in the past, and that's when he was kind of in a funk of not playing well, and they had him at 35 and 33-1 against an equivalently difficult field at a course where he had played well before. Now at a course where he has no course history, at least in competitive golf, coming off an injury, and he had not been playing well before that. He's now 25-1 against basically the same field. That just seems really strange in terms of odds for me. I guess people are just lining up to go bet Brooks. No Bryson this week, no Tiger this week, but like I said, Rahm, Dustin, JT, Rory, Xander, Brooks, Morikawa is in the field as well, Finau, Berger. It's a pretty top-heavy field. You have some guys who played overseas last week. Tyrrell Hatton coming off his win at the BMW Championship at Wentworth, won by 4. He is in the field. He's $9,600. What else do we have here? Fleetwood was overseas last week. Fitzpatrick was overseas last week in his hilarious comments about Bryson. Then Bryson body bagged him, but then Bryson shot +3 at the easiest course going. So fun times with Bryson. I don't think we're going to see Bryson again until the Masters, shockingly enough. And then you have a bunch of bums from last week who missed the cut, like Scheffler, who I was on, Ricky Fowler, who I was on. Not even that huge of a price decrease for Ricky Fowler. He was $9,000 last week. He's $8,100 this week. At least he can't miss the cut this week. That's kind of nice to figure out. Victor Hovland's back in the field. So is Daniel Berger. We haven't seen them since the U.S. Open. Both elevated prices just because we haven't seen them. If we go back and look at the past 50 rounds and just kind of sort by strokes gained total, Berger's actually second. Tends to play really well on bent grass courses as well, along with Bermuda. He got his win earlier this year at the Charles Schwab. That was on bent grass. So that's kind of encouraging to see. Although, historically over the past 2 years, he's been bad, below average on bent, better on POA than anything else. The putting has just kind of been hit or miss. You see the U.S. Open, that was on POA, gained a bunch. The Northern Trust, I believe, the Northern Trust was bent in Boston, so he gained 6 there. Bet the next week, lost a little. That's the one decent thing about Berger, is that he hasn't lost more than 1 stroke since the Sony. In back-to-back weeks of very poor performances. Then you have to go back to last year's Houston Open. But generally, he either gains a bunch on the greens or loses a minimal amount. And the ball striking has been pretty good. He's lost it off the tee a little bit recently. What I did want to do is go back and check in on last week to see how maybe some of the under-the-radar guys did, or who just did really well in ball striking. Poor Matthew Wolff. I bet on him twice now in the past 4 weeks, and he's come second both times. Neither once with an each way. This time not with the each way. Fucking party Marty Laird out of nowhere. Used him on DraftKings. Did not bet him. Should have bet him. Shout out Kenny Kim, who I believe did bet him. That's a really nice guy. There's a few people who were on party Marty throughout the course of the week. So good to see someone win. I'm sure everyone would be sitting there just oh my God, if Austin Cook had ended up winning, that would not have turned out well for anyone. If we just look at overall approach for the course, Jesus Christ, Stuart Sink, -10. A very poor final round for him. Scott Piercy, Vegas guy, ended up 7.1 strokes gained. He ended up eagling out on the 18th hole. That's a big part of that. A couple guys for the week. Justin Suh just continues to play well. That's 2 top 10s for him now in his past 3 starts. Did it at Corrales, did it last week. Martin Laird, John... Haven't seen him in ages. My 2 favorite nickname guys, second and third for the week. They're not in the field this week, but Han and Ha and Sue. three guys to really kind of keep on your radar moving forward once we get back to our like regular swing season events, not these sort of like all-star no-cut fields, because next week at Zozo is also a no-cut event. Zach Johnson continues to strike the ball really well in terms of his approach. Zalatoris, a T5. The guy is really good. I don't know if he got his card or not. I don't know how many people tied for fifth. I think it was 3. There was some weird special exemption that would get him enough FedEx Cup points to pass the 150. I think he may have gotten there, but not. Who knows? Eventually, CT Pan's going to turn this around. The irons have been good for a while now. But at the same time, like his driving sucks and his putting has sucked, but the irons continue to be really good. If we can get him in a weaker field, maybe the RSM is a good spot for that. Maybe Bermuda, if that's still on the schedule, just a shorter course where an iron player can kind of go wacko. If Brennan Todd can play really well at a course, CT Pan can as well. Let's see here. Sergio, the ball striking was really good again, but he went back to his normal putting and his normal around the green play, so he did not win. Ended up in a T for 43rd. Bryson, Bryson, the driving was definitely going to be there, but lost it on the approaches on Saturday and just couldn't get it back. It's Cantlay that I really want to go look at here because he's in the field this week, gained minimally. I actually want to go dig into him a little bit deeper just to see what happened with him in the final round. If we just load up his round by round. Let's see, at the Shriners, he was just a disaster across the board on Sunday. I don't know what happened to him. That's been a theme for him recently when you look at it, is that he keeps putting together this 3 pretty decent rounds, and then this one round that is just fucking horrendous. It happened at the PGA Championship. It happened at the U.S. Open. Where else was it? The second playoff event when I was on him that week at the really hard course at Olympia Fields. Was that the BMW? Yeah, the BMW Championship, where he was good for 3 rounds and then was just a disaster. I believe it was on Saturday. This time it came around on Sunday. It's funny because he was the guy that I was sweating with my Wolf tickets. Like, just don't go run away with this, Patrick Cantlay. But let's see. He did, he had 4 rounds in a row that were pretty good. You see, just one at the U.S. Open, a disaster. One at the BMW Championship, complete disaster. At the Northern Trust, had a bad round. At the PGA Championship, 1 bad round. It seems like he is pretty close. These are pretty decent numbers in terms of ball striking wise, in terms of short game. The off the tee stuff has been a little bit hit and miss, which is really strange for Patrick Cantlay. If we just go to his overall player card and we can just kind of see his long term, generally he's been really good off the tee historically, gaining a stroke and a half per event over his past 90 tournaments and his past 90, like just for the course of his career. Like even if you just kind of take a scroll, sometimes he does very poorly off the tee, but it's not a lot. But generally speaking, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4.5, 2, 5, 3.5, and then you see him now. It's like 0.2, 0.3, 1. He's not getting to those levels that you want to get him to in the ball striking department. The putting's been good. The around the green's been good. That's great. But overall, for the course of the tournament, we're just not seeing it. And especially last week, like the driving wasn't good outside of round 2. The approach horrendous in round 4. He was able to overcome a bad, just a neutral approach round. Cantlay is going to be on my radar this week. If we go to, let's take a look here. Where are we going to go to? We're going to dksportsbook.com and check out the odds for this week. I'm going to sports A to Z. Let's go to golf. Where the hell is golf? CJ Cup. See what the opening odds are on DraftKings Sportsbook this week. Obviously, where I'm from, I cannot play. Dustin, Rahm. What is Cantlay? See, Cantlay's only 18-1. Those aren't great odds. Xander's 14, Rory's 14, Justin is 12. It feels like a very high-end guy is going to win here. It might be a decent week to get back on Morikawa, 26-1. I know I bet him last week, and I bet him at the U.S. Open. I bet him at Shriners last week, and it did not turn out well at all. But let's just see. Tee to green, he was fine. He's been fine for his past 3 rounds, tee to green. It's been the short game. The off the tee was really bad round 1 at the Shriners. I remember he almost shanked one out of bounds. But look at this. 1.7 lost on the greens in round 1, 1.6 in round 2. Now, Morikawa is not a great putter. We know this. And maybe he's trying to work through something on the greens. But the approach has been good. Overall, the ball striking has been in the positives every round since round 2 of the BMW Championship. He is an elite player in the world. He tends to play better on bent grass greens. It might be a time to get back on Colin Morikawa at 26-1. You might be able to find an even larger number out there if you really wanted to. Let's take a quick look at some of the guys who missed the cut last week. go into Shriners for a second. Actually, we can go back into it this way for players who are here. What happened with Fowler last week? So Fowler, good off the tee, horrendous on approach, minus 7.5. That's not good. Hideki Matsuyama. Let's go his round by round and see what happened to him. Hideki. $9,200. Overall, he rates out really well. We'll just see how he ended up doing last week. Minus 1.5 gained in the first round, lost on approach in the second round. That's not very good. Who are other guys who played last week? Getberger down at 33. Fleetwood coming off like the really bad loss 2 weeks ago. And then played pretty well at the BMW Championship. Obviously not as good as Hatton, because Hatton ended up winning. I don't know what to make of some of these guys coming back from overseas. I don't know if they're going to kind of be gassed coming off the biggest tournament in the European Tour calendar. It's kind of like their Players' Championship, the BMW Championship, that maybe he's a bit gassed coming off of 2 straight tournaments overseas, then flying back to Las Vegas. We'll see how that ends up going. I wonder if there is any kind of correlation to, do you want to take guys that had played in Vegas last week at the Shriners to get a tune-up, get adjusted to the elevation changes that are up there? I don't know, to be perfectly honest with you, if that's a route that you want to take. Let's go look at Louis, Scheffler, and Im, and just see how they ended up doing last week. Well, I know how they finished results-wise. We take a look at Im. He ended up, let's see, good putt, really good tee to green, almost the entire course of the week. The short game, the putting kind of let him down a little bit. The around the green let him down. Positive off the tee. The approach, good. Maybe Sungjae's turning a corner here. All right. So Sungjae is someone to keep. You always like him more on Bermuda than you do on Bent, just when you look at the terms of his results. Let's go take a kind of look at his history. Honda, first place finish, Bermuda. Bermuda at the Sanderson. Bermuda at the Arnold Palmer. Not sure about the Zozo. Third at the Arnold Palmer, that's Bermuda. Bermuda. Safeway is POA. Wyndham is Bermuda. That Canadian Open in Hamilton was POA. Corrales, I'm not sure. Phoenix, Bermuda. Wyndham, Bermuda. And then you have the Amex, which is Bermuda, and the Charles Schwab, which is Bentgrass. The Tour Championship, Bermuda. So maybe it is a defined split. You can see that his putting splits on Bermuda are much better than anywhere else, and some of these shorter courses really do play well. But the fact that he's gaining back off the tee, now that's also relative to the field. When you have some of the best drivers in the world back in the field, maybe he won't be as good, but that's really interesting to see. Let's see what happened with Iron Chef. He's now back 2 weeks since coming off the COVID list. Last week, bad on approach. That's 2 bad weeks on approach after like just a glorious run through the end of the season for him. The off the tee was still there, though. I wonder if that was just one really horrendous round, or maybe it was, let's see here. Strokes gained approach -2 in the first round, but he covered it up with decent putting, lost putting, then gained on approach, but just minimally. Not a great effort from him overall in terms of the approach. He's lost in 4 of his past 6 rounds. Don't like to see that too much. Harris English missed the cut last week. Let's see what ended up happening with him. We'll just go to his round by round to try to figure out with him. Bad short game last week. Good off the tee. Has now not gained on approach in each of his past 4 rounds. The putter left him a little bit too. Generally a better putter, as we've seen over time. It's either he figures out the course or he does not have the course figured out whatsoever, as we can see with his stats. But maybe I'll be off Harris English. Maybe his run is a little bit over. Just trying to find a sleeper from down in this field is really tough. Like Rose was overseas last week. Maybe just go back to the Todd father. He just kind of fucking pops up every single week. Lowry was overseas last week. We haven't seen Woodland in a bit. Oh, good. Spieth is here. At least he can't miss the cut this week. Siwoo ended up popping a little bit last week. Why was that, Siwoo? Well, he putted the fucking lights out in the final 2 rounds. That could be why. Strokes gained short game. Yeah. When you gain 4 strokes around the green, you're going to go up. The ball striking in the minus. Everything that he gained on Saturday, he lost on Sunday. So that's been very hit and miss for Siwoo. That's, par for the course for Siwoo. Maybe this is a situation where he can get himself back into it. I'm curious to see what his odds are for the week. Where is Tommy Fleetwood? 90-1 for Siwoo Kim. Probably not good enough for me. Just looking down this list, this could be a Connors course. Maybe he doesn't quite have the distance off the tee to get there. Steele. Maybe it's time to go back to Champ now that he's 175-1. The guy tends to win every single year. So, what has Champ been up to? He did play last week. He must have missed the cut last week. He was playing with Bryson and Wolf in that first group. Let's see. Decent round 1. Couldn't gain on approach. Yeah, it's been kind of a rough go for him. The putting is, oh my God, has been fucking brutal. Losing over a stroke putting in each round, going back to round 2 of the Tour Championship. Good God, Cameron Champ. Maybe he can get it back together this week. If he starts putting well, we know that we've seen him kind of like whenever he finishes well. He played well at the PGA Championship, gaining a whole bunch of strokes putting. He played well at St. Jude, gaining a whole bunch of strokes putting. So as long as he's not like a disaster on the greens, he can challenge. 175 to 1 is a big number in a no-cut event for a guy who does have elite skills off the tee. As you can see here, like he's just been bleeding strokes on the green. But when it goes right for him, it tends to go pretty right. 2.5, 2, 2.4, 3.6 in the overall splits. Bent is by far his worst putting surface, though, but he just tends to putt well everywhere, or putt poorly everywhere. So maybe it could be like a JB Holmes type situation. He's a really shitty putter overall until those moments where he isn't anymore. Let's just take a look over the last 2 months and just see who really rates out well in terms of tee to green. I'll try to build a model once I do a little bit more research throughout the course of the week. So tee to green over the past 2 months. Let's go by average per round. Let's see. Dustin killing everyone. Wolf, Bubba Watson, Keegan Bradley. That's interesting. Let's go take a quick look at Keegan. Finau, Connors, Siwoo, Kokrak, Rahm, Henley continues to be up there tee to green wise. Ball striking wise, Dustin, Wolf, Bubba. I'm not going to bet Bubba, am I? Jesus. I'll take a look into Bubba, too. What has Keegan been up to? He played really well at Sanderson Farms. He ended up with a T4. First time he had gained... Yeah, it's like the Sergio situation. Like, you finally gain strokes putting, and all of a sudden you're inside the top 5. And the ball striking has been back for him recently. Gained both off the tee and in approach in each of his past 3 tournaments. That's encouraging to see. Missed the cut at Safeway, but almost got there as well. The problem is he can putt you out of a tournament, but where there's no cut at this event, he can't putt you out of the side of the cut line in this tournament. You'll continue to score points. Bubba, yeah, man, Bubba's ball striking has been fucking excellent recently. Just the putting has been a disaster. Even with him, yeah, again, another guy who's just bad on bent grass, but could it be one of these situations where he flips around the putting? Who knows as it pertains to it. So that's my quick look. Hopefully you got something out of that just by me kind of talking through what I'm looking for this week, looking at the DraftKings pricing, looking at the stats from last week, who's been playing a little bit better. Again, I'll have my full show on Wednesday as I really dig into the research, really, and have feedback from my guest as well. I haven't booked a guest yet. We'll see who we get for that. Maybe we'll talk about some of the Scottish Opens. We'll run through the DraftKings pricing. We'll look at some of the betting odds for the week and try to project out forward a little bit and even talk about how to construct your teams in a no-cut event. Because I didn't even mention, even if we look at here, that although there are 78 players in the field, if you look at the bottom end of this field, where this is still technically playing by the same rules as it was happening in Korea, you're going to get a lot of players you've never even like Tahi Lee, and just a bunch of like Korean players, Asian Tour players who, aren't really going to compete all that well. Hey, Tom Kim, he's back in terms of being at the very top end of the PGA Tour. So when you just go by the bottom of the pricing, somehow Tyler Duncan and Jim Herman, like Tyler Duncan's a good player. He should not be the min at 6,000. Maybe just play Tyler Duncan, Andrew Landry, the Gooch, like they're better than these types of players from like the Asian and Korean tours that are coming over. So I think there's probably like 6 or 7 or 8 of those guys. And you can almost treat it like the old dudes at the Masters or the guys who just randomly sneak in for whatever reason that come around from like the worldwide rankings that you don't necessarily need to play them, like the AMs, that you can kind of cut out 10 to 12 guys from the very bottom of this field and just don't even consider them. 1 or 2 could pop. They're not going to win, but one of them could have like a top 20 and could be in the optimal lineup. You're legit going to have no idea who those guys are going to be. Not that we know who's going to win every single week anyway, but you can almost tell that these guys just push them aside. Don't consider them. Continue to cut out the play. Like you need to find a way to trim down your core as much as possible. Just throwing those guys out, generally the best place to start in a no-cut event. I'll look into Xander because it is a no-cut event, Hideki because it's a no-cut event, just to see how they've been trending recently as well. But in the meantime, become a member at fantasynational.com and use /Mayo at the end of it to get yourself a discount if you want to do your own research. Like I said, I will be back on Wednesday with a full show, player by player, breaking down each range and really digging into everything to try to find the best picks of the week, all right? Till then, I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!